You unlock this benefit with the key of Patreon. Beyond is another dimension. A dimension of thought. A dimension of speculation. A dimension of mind. You're moving into a land of both waffle and substance. Of things and ideas. You've just crossed into the podcast zone. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Trekking Through the Twilight Zone. And you're back just in the nick of time, because I'm joined by Julian, and we're going to be talking about a brand new episode. And actually, just told you, it's called The Nick of Time. And I'll say a very own, a young William Shatner discusses and sort of presents the idea of superstition in small-town America. So, first off, Julian, what are your thoughts on Nick of Time?
It is the strangest Star Trek episode I've ever seen. You know, Captain Kirk goes back to 1960, and Luke apparently has amnesia and like marries this chick, and but can't get this obsession with the future out of his brain, and that manifests in this fortune-telling machine. No, I mean this is an okay episode. I think it's I think it's fine.
Can I just say that what you just said at the beginning there, I actually think that would have been a great episode where halfway through Spock turns up wearing a hat and they're trying to convince him. They're like, Jim, you've got to come back with us. Whole thing. Like, I'm sure
it's not real, Jim.
Yeah. And he'd be going back to the diner and be sort of like pulling the lever and being like, do what? What is the Enterprise? Do I need to go back with them?
It's we say this, and it's this stupid thing we do of pretending that characters, an actor only plays one character or something. But it is true that Shatner. I mean, I'm watching this going like, oh, he was already wearing a toupee, but he does. Shatner always, less so. We'll get to another episode with Shatner that's more famous, but Shatner is very much kind of playing that confident character that he plays as Captain Kirk. So, it's strange watching Shatner just play this kind of confident, he's still got that Captain Kirk dickishness. Like he kind of grabs his wife and pulls her across the street, He doesn't seem too concerned about her as a person until then he apologizes, and it's like, oh, here's the part of the episode where Captain Kirk says he's sorry for treating everybody like an absolute asshole for 60 minutes.
Yeah, no, it's funny because watching it, that did cross my mind. I was like, oh, this is what he wasn't doing something different. Like this was just his shtick. This is what he did, and it's fine. I'm quite. He's what I would say is for everything you've just said, he still has a charm. And so there's a charm to this episode. I actually really enjoyed this episode, and this sort of meditation on superstition, and letting it run your life. Like this thing of being obsessed with. They go into the diner and there's that little. I said, do you know what? Firstly, because all it is a napkin dispenser with a little thing on it, like with the devil's head, and you put like a dime in it or whatever, or
a penny.
A penny. Sorry, you put a penny in. Yeah, and then you ask it a question, click it down, and a little answer comes out, cryptic answer. Like I was thinking, it made me think of Big was another this idea, but I was like, I want one of those. Like they're ace. Like that's a really cool little novelty gadget. Like that's really cool. But I like though it starts, and this sounds like superstition or obsession or these things. It starts as a joke. He sits down and they bobble the little devil head, bobbles around. He asks it a certain thing, will the car be finished by whatever, click, or, they ask, and all of a sudden the answer is like, but even as you watch the episode, yes, the answers do lean towards being prophetic, but only enough that if you really wanted to read into it, like you could still be like, they're vague enough that it's a complete nonsense.
No. I mean, I would say it's stronger than that. I mean, because there is the potential of death if you go outside before 3. That almost happens. And then there is the car being fixed and the guy shows up immediately after. And at the end, you see, I think it's done well. Another couple comes in and goes to the same machine. So clearly this thing has it's never wrong. I mean,
No, that's true.
There's, so yes, it's not clear that you could say this absolutely for sure is working. It's just within some realm of ambiguity, but it's pretty clear,
Yeah, it's when you say within the realm of ambiguity, it's that Twilight Zone ambiguity. Like, yeah, this is still a supernatural or preternatural sort of like object, but like I like the fact it's vague. Like, it doesn't come out and be like, "Don't go out at 3, eh? Hold your horses, Jim." So, but yeah, I don't know. I kind of like it because I like the idea that it starts as a joke and starts to become an obsession. And weirdly, like we talked about this with the gambling episode from season 1, this idea of obsession. This felt like weirdly like the obsession with this machine felt more. I don't know. It did better than that gambling one, because the gambling one felt like such a left turn. This one, like she shows, like at one point she looks at his keys and he's got like a 4-leaf clover on it and a lucky rabbit's foot. Like he has a already got a sort of a sense of the superstitious, and so it's easy for him to sort of be slipping into this thing, which I just kind of liked it.
Yeah, and I did like that point with the rabbit's foot and the 4-leaf clover. That's quite well done. But what I don't understand, I mean, there is a sort of like, he also doesn't get obsessed immediately, right? He's able to say he wants to delay leaving the restaurant, but then he's able to leave, right? I mean, he's not totally obsessed. So I don't know that that's done perfectly, but it's nice that he's not just captured by this thing.
Yeah.
Having said that, I don't understand what this episode is about. I think the fun of it is just watching Shatner, be obsessed with this thing. Because it wants to be about superstition and not giving into this, obsession. Don't be OCD with your superstitions, right? Okay, fine. Except if this thing is real, it's not superstition. And it seems to want to be like, this is a trap that other people break down in this town and they cannot leave. And at the end, you have this couple, they're talking about, like, when are we going to be able to leave? And she seems despondent that the machine says, seems to give a negative answer.
I had a read on it that was basically, it starts about superstition. And it said, like, so the idea that he starts to take it serious is because of his superstition. Like, he is more open to sort of believing this machine because of his superstition. So, because his wife's like, it's a nonsense. It's sort of like, come on, let's just go. She sort of understands that his sort of superstition, because he's obviously, it predicts his promotion, doesn't it, sort of thing,
right?
As well.
That's the other thing, is he's got anxiety from the start, which this plays into, right? So and we can all identify with that.
Oh, most definitely. Like, yeah. And so this thing starts to give him starts by giving him good news. Like, he gets the promotion, he becomes office manager, which is such a lowly role in modern world that, like, I was like, oh, that's kind of quaint. He's going to be the youngest office manager in the country, and I'm like, oh, bless you.
Yeah, but don't forget, back then you could be an office manager and put your kids through college and own a decent house and own a car or two.
Now you're an office manager and you are living in your car. Like, that's how it works.
Right.
Luckily, they have a Cadillac. It's a nice big car. But I think that this episode sort of is twofold for me. In that you're introduced into it because of the superstition, but the end is more about like, oh no, this is, like you say, if you were to take this and go, no, this is real. Like, it's giving you cryptic but decipherable tidbits of the future. It then comes to this point of going, like, and you and I have had this thing about determinate future and sort of free will, but the point I think at the end is, like, can you walk away from being told your future? And that's where it comes down to. I think the final bit isn't about saying, like, because that couple, I'll get into the couple in a minute, but like for Shatner and his wife, they're like, he's like, no, I'm gonna go back. I've got to keep finding out. And she's like, no, I don't want to know.
Mm-hmm.
Like, right. I want to,
turns into kind of like live your life.
Live your life. Just walk. And then that family, that couple comes in and they're like, can we leave today? And then you don't see what the answer is. They just go, oh God, and they break down. And I think the answer is, like, don't be driven. Do your own thing. Like, yeah, you might not be able to leave, but at least, make your own decision. Like, get up and walk away. Don't have your future decided for you by other factors, like, and that's how I sort of read into it a little bit. Like, it's not the cleanest message,
Yeah,
but I like that progression of, like, you could be more susceptible to this stuff because firstly you're gullible,
yeah,
and then you are more willing to sort of be told and led, because it's almost like that thing of, like, the first one's free. Do you know what I mean? I'm going to give you the first one free. You got promotion, well done.
right.
But the others are going to come at a little bit of a cost. And at that point, like, when do you walk away?
Well, I mean, you shouldn't walk away. It seems to me that there's a false choice being offered here. I mean, it starts with superstition and it ends up being just live your life. And we're supposed to think, I do think it's not just that other couple is more superstitious, it's that they are sort of they're all sort of unable to leave. There's some sort of trap here that's not just we're superstitious, but like evil forces are at work keeping your car from being repaired. And this other couple, Shatner barely got out, right? There is that feeling at the end of the episode, but it's a false choice. I mean, interestingly, the person who manages this restaurant, the only clerk, doesn't seem to be aware of how, like, people are coming in all day to use this device at that particular booth. But it seems to me, if you have a device that really does ordain the future, like, I get the theory that you wouldn't want to know when you die, right? I get the theory that, like, I want to live my life. I don't want to know too much stuff. On the other hand, there's a lot that we would want to know, right? Like, should I go for, my cancer screening? Right. I mean, that might be more important if you get, like, one of these cryptic answers. So it seems to me this is an invaluable resource. You should be offering to buy it from this guy or steal it and take it with you, but don't be enslaved to it. You don't have to like, get the answer and say, all right, more pennies, right? For the rest of your life.
I see what you're saying, but the crux of that, the issue or the problem with that is that moment of don't be enslaved to that. And we're actually going to get to another episode shortly, which offers a similar kind of, dilemma. But this idea of being slavishly sort of devoted to it is the problem, because once you get the taste, and that's the thing, like, where I thought of the gambling episode is this idea of addiction, like, because he does have an element of addiction. Like, the moment he's like, it works, I've got to know more, like, I can't not know things anymore, and that becomes the slippery slope. And I think that's the trap, isn't it? It's like that honey trap. It's a Venus flytrap or a honey trap. It's like, it'll lure you in with these little bits, and you could potentially become this family that's then trapped there. Because the thing that's interesting, like, and again, this is, you said when we talked about the previous episode about episodes that you want to know more about, like, you want to expand upon. Like, to me, this is one of those episodes where I was like, oh, I could do so much more with this episode. Like, I want to see not just this couple coming at the end. Like, I want to see people sat in this diner looking pensive in the background. Like, people when they sit
waiting
at that table.
their turn.
Yeah, like, they sit at that table and they look like someone grabbed. Oh shit, they've sat there. There's panic or something. And I also want the cafe owner to be a little bit more suspect. Like, instead of just being obsessed with his chicken steaks, like, he wants to be a bit more interested in this. But it did feel like once you go past a certain point, and Shatner was approaching that point, like, it stops giving you things for free, and you start having to pay for these things. It was trying to tell you, I think, the message is, again, that thing of, like, addiction, of, like, stop relying on these things, because you've got to sort of step away and live your life and all this other stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, would you become addicted to this? I mean, I wouldn't.
Yes. Oh, Christ. Yeah, I sit down and go, like, do you know what? I've got 5 minutes. I'm going to watch a bit of TikTok. Half an hour later, I'm like, Christ, I need to be out the house. Like, I am terrible for this stuff. Oh, no, yeah, I know.
I have an addictive personality, but I know, like, I'm superstitious about some things, but I'm not a by nature superstitious person. If I had something that told the future, even if it was ambiguous, wouldn't you like to just kind of keep that on the shelf and be like, am I gonna am I going to land this other job? Is my kid going to get into college? All those things that that we just have anxiety about. This is not going to, it may give you a straight answer like it does about the car. It may also give you an ambiguous answer, but at least, assuming that it is in fact correct, you will get answers. But I wouldn't be consulting that thing night and day. I wouldn't even think about it most days. I would basically be like, I'm anxious about this shit. I'm going to go ask the demon object.
All right. You say that, right? And that's fair. And, I'm glad of that. I think I probably would be more leaning towards that. But then it made me think of things like where people do this stuff. Like people do like daily tarot cards to sort of see what their day is going to be. Or is it the I Ching? These things where people will do these things. They'll open up the I Ching or whatever, and they'll get some cryptic answer, and that will dictate their day. People do this.
Or fucking horoscopes, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to read my future in that newspaper because everybody born that month.
Exactly. Being a Sagittarius, I do know my sign, but it's like, yes, today is going to be a tough day. You're going to trip on a banana peel. And you go, oh, that's very... And all of a sudden you're walking around and thousands of people, millions of people all slip on a banana peel. Yeah, it's a nonsense. But
it is nonsense. But, presumably people do that because that gives them some... I don't think that they're really letting their entire day be directed by it. It's look, Nancy Reagan, scheduled appointments in the White House based on astrology. But in most cases, you got to go to work, and it's just like, be open to an opportunity today. Okay, well, how's that,
let me tell you something. The current leader of what was Burma, Myanmar, does everything based on numerology. Yeah. Literally everything. Now, that's not a great example because he's clearly like batshit crazy, a dictator. And a dictator and kills thousands of people, all the time. But you're saying that people don't do this. Like, yeah, but there's a mindset that does. And I can see that level of addiction or superstition or, greed even, like how could I use this for my own purposes or whatever?
Which but again, this isn't a metaphor for that because it works. Right? I mean, if it works, it's not a metaphor for people who are addicted to us. Like, I totally agree with what you're saying. That's a very good point. But I mean, if I have an astrologer that works, it's not totally clear that it does in this episode. But if I did, right. I mean, I'm going to consult that astrologer.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I do hear what you're saying. And the thing is, I would say, a bit like we were saying in the last episode, is but this does work in extremes. The point is it's giving you these extreme cases. Because there are people that would do it once and go, oh, that's fun, and walk away and never think about it again. But then there are others that would be more susceptible to it. And obviously it has to show you an extreme case. But,
millions of people just heard this and just say, wait a minute, astrology does work. And that's exactly why I'm rational to do these things.
Yeah. No, I can't justify astrology or... one day on a different podcast, I'll tell you about a story about tarot cards and fortune reading from that both me and my wife went to, and how it was. Yeah, it's a very interesting story of utter garbage.
Well, yeah, I'd like to hear it, and I mean, I know people who are really into this stuff and believe it for real. But again, I don't know that this episode gets at that. I will say, final thoughts. Shatner is a dick.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's such a dick, man. Like,
yeah. I wouldn't want him as my office manager. Let's put it that way.
No. Yeah, and I mean, he but the other thing is he's not even like some alpha male dick who is just like, look, woman, I'm gonna do this. He pretends that he wants to get her ice cream, and he pretends that he's interested in, and she knows, right? It's perfectly obvious. He's like the nice guy dick, right?
Yeah.
He like thinks he's a nice guy, but what he's doing is really just manipulative and transparently selfish. She should just get a divorce. I mean, that's the real ending. Don't live your life.
Yeah. They're not even married yet, because one of the questions she asks is, will I be married? And it says the answer is obvious. And I think they're both getting different answers.
Yeah, well, the moral of the story is go live your life without William Shatner.
Yes, I would agree with that. So yeah, anyway, so fun thoughts. I will say though, regardless, I actually really enjoyed this episode. Like you say, everything we've talked about, I think there's good in it. I thought it was fun. I want one of those little things to sort of pull the trigger on. I think they're quite cool as a novelty gag. And it was cool seeing Shatner. Like you say, it's this. He clearly is playing. This is just Kirk being Kirk, and that's I still find that kind of fun. But yeah, no, I actually kind of enjoyed this episode.
Well, you liked it better than I did, and I'm glad you did.
Yes. Right, any final thoughts, Julian?
No, I'm good. Let Shatner be Shatner.
Cool. We'll leave on that note. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you really enjoyed this. I'll be interested to see what you guys thought. Like, would you be addicted to sort of finding out what the future would hold, even if it's cryptic answers? Let us know. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening along, and we shall see you in the next episode.